Tiffany Wright had been dead for about 2 days when she was found in a room above the Scarborough Arms in Upperthorpe, Sheffield, in 2007. Police were called after a pub disco ended on a Sunday night. Her mother, Sabrina Hirst, had not checked on the youngster since the previous Friday morning. Police and paramedics found the little girl in a filthy bed in a beetle infested room, her body covered in insect bites, looking like a porcelain doll with sunken eyes. A room where the family dogs were kept was full of excrement and urine. The stench was unbearable, even for experienced staff used to finding filthy homes. A pathologist said her bones showed evidence of significant periods of malnutrition between periods when she had been fed. The 999 call came in just after midnight. Sabrina Hirst told the operator her 3-year-old daughter had collapsed and was not breathing. The operator coached her in basic CPR, hoping the child would live long enough for the paramedics to arrive. A police patrol made its way to the apartment. The flat was above the pub. The officers found Sabrina Hirst crouched in a bedroom doorway over a small body. The child was dead. One of the officers lifted Tiffany's arm and noted that it was floppy, not stiff with rigor mortis, that her skin was tinged with an odd, blackening pallor, and that her eyes were sallow and sunken. She was covered in a skein of insect bites, adding to the building suspicion that she had been dead for some time. Police quizzed Sabrina and a man who introduced himself as Robert Hirst, her husband. He was balding and overweight. He was 43. His wife Sabrina was 22. He said he was Tiffany's stepfather and that the baby in the cot was his child. Police noted that Sabrina was heavily pregnant. Tiffany, she said, had come down with some kind of bug. She had last eaten on Thursday a sandwich and some water. Sabrina had next checked on her at 7 a.m. on Friday when Tiffany seemed okay. In the early hours of Sunday, police arrested the couple. They were taken to South Yorkshire Police headquarters and their 1-year-old baby was placed in foster care. A murder inquiry rapidly unfolded, centering on the pub. Detective Chief Inspector Dave Powell, he said it was the worst thing I have witnessed in more than 100 murders. Heavy locks were on the internal doors leading from the bar to the living quarters. The Hirsts had put them there to keep casual visitors at bay. Climbing the stairs, the police stepped over soiled diapers flung into empty catering boxes of Walker's crisps. For those of you in America, those are Lay's. In Tiffany's bedroom, a stained pillow bore the indent from her head. There was no duvet, no toys, only a small pair of well-worn pink and white Adidas trainers. Tiffany appeared to have clutched them as she lay dying. Behind one of several stained mattresses that stood upended in the room, police found unopened Christmas presents addressed to Tiffany from the previous year. Now, on October 2nd, 2007, the Hirsts were released from custody. 5 days later, Sabrina gave birth to her third child. The baby was taken into care 10 days later while police waited for the final pieces of forensic evidence. By the time they rearrested the Hirsts on the 17th of December 2007 and charged them with murder, Tiffany's bug had been identified as terminal bronchial pneumonia, a condition more commonly associated with famine victims. Famine? In England? What on earth happened to this child? Keep listening, because there's a massive twist in the end, believe me. The child would have been visibly ill, feverish, coughing, vomiting, but no one had administered any medicine or called a doctor. In their medical reports, doctors noted Tiffany's immunity was already dangerously weakened since she was chronically malnourished. Her size was typical of a 2-year-old rather than a 3-year-old, and her leg and arm bones were marked with growth arrest lines. Growth arrest lines? What on earth is that? Meaning she had suffered long periods without food. She had barely put on any weight in the last year of her life. A toxicology examination found a condition common in anorexia sufferers, in which the body begins to eat itself, the liver converting body fat into fatty acids. So she became her own source of energy? Wow, that's mind boggling. Analysis of Tiffany's stomach contents revealed she'd had nothing to eat for more than 20 hours before her death, which was likely to have been 3 days before the 999 call. In return for a guilty plea on the 27th of June 2008, Sabrina was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 12 years in prison. 12 years? I've slept longer than 12 years. Robert, having started a new job a week before Tiffany's death, could place himself outside the flat at the time. He pleaded guilty to child cruelty and neglect and was sentenced to 5 years. In the absence of cross-examination, neither had to explain or defend their actions. A child living in a community rich in health, education, and social services had been starved to death. Yet the Tiffany Wright killing soon slipped from public view. 5 days after she was arrested and charged with Tiffany's murder, Sabrina wrote to a relative from prison. She said, "6 months ago I had it all. A fabulous husband, 2 gorgeous children, 1 little bump on the way. Now I've lost my precious firstborn little girl. I miss her so much and would give anything to have her back in my life." A few weeks later, Sabrina went on to write, "I failed my little angel. I feel totally lost, lonely and empty. Someone up there must really hate me. Always has and probably always will. Why did it all have to fall apart? Because of you, you muppet." From the start, things had been complicated, even when she had been Sabrina Shaw, before she was married. The product of a teenage romance, growing up with her mother Bridget and her sister Louise. Friends say Sabrina was independent and proud of what work brought her. A new television, nice furniture, the odd foreign holiday, even their council house in Shirecliffe, North Sheffield, overlooking abandoned steelworks. When Sabrina and Louise, who was 2 years older, were at Shirecliffe Jr., their father left and Bridget married Paul Bennett, Shirecliffe Jr. being their school. At 14, she turned in on herself even further when her sister moved out. For 6 months, no one knew where Louise was. When she finally reappeared in 2001, it was to announce that she was pregnant and moving in with her boyfriend. Sabrina now was all alone. Her relationship with her mother and stepfather deteriorated. She got into trouble looking for a reaction, her worsening behavior driving people away. Sabrina passed 9 GCSEs, enrolled at 6th form college, and passed 1 A-level. And for those of you watching in America or North America, 9 GCSEs, she's a smart girl. 1 A-level, however, In September 2004, Sabrina found herself alongside Louise on the maternity ward at Sheffield's Children's Hospital. Her sister was pregnant with her second child, a son. Sabrina awaited the delivery of a daughter she planned to call Tiffany. At first, all seemed to go well. As teenage parents, Sabrina and Martin, her boyfriend at the time, qualified for a council house. Tiffany was registered with a doctor and appeared healthy and happy. Photos show a well-dressed and cared-for little girl asleep in her rocker. After Tiffany's death, police found a box of baby things that Sabrina had kept. This was a scan, hospital wrist tag, her first socks, and sleep suits. But she would later say she was already daunted by her responsibilities and misery in her relationship. Martin moved out when Tiffany was 3 months old, while Sabrina, like her own mother, sought independence in work. She took the first job she was offered, behind the bar at the Five Arches, leaving Tiffany with friends or relatives. She also secretly began dating the pub landlord. His name was Rob Hirst. He was old enough to be her father. He already had 3 daughters and a stepdaughter with his long-term partner, Donna. Even his friends told her to stay clear. No sooner had he got Sabrina into bed than he left his wife and kids and encouraged her to move into the pub in December 2004. According to friends, Hirst lavished money and attention to his new girlfriend. The pair left Sheffield to run a village pub in Staffordshire in early 2005, and soon after Sabrina found out she was pregnant. Rob had made a big thing about her having his child, but no sooner had she become pregnant than he started disappearing. I'm going to tell you shortly why he disappeared, but why do you think he did it? Let's keep going. But heavily pregnant and miles away from her sister, Sabrina later said she had been depressed, anxious, and overworked. A dangerous pattern of behavior began to emerge as Sabrina left Tiffany alone upstairs in her bedroom with a bag of crisps while she manned the bar. If anyone asked after the little girl, she'd say she was with relatives. Then in July 2006, they returned to Sheffield with a lease for the Scarborough Arms, not far from Sabrina's family and friends, a place where they would be rooted. But things began to go wrong immediately. When she arrived home from hospital without sleep suits after giving birth, Rob volunteered to get some, but he vanished for 7 hours. They had a delivery due that afternoon in the pub. So 16 hours after giving birth, she opened the pub with both children downstairs and after pains. Paranoid about Rob's increasing absences and working all hours at the pub, Sabrina later told a friend that she felt like she was falling to pieces. But it was Tiffany who was really suffering. A fact picked up by Kathleen Delaney, a community midwife who began visiting soon after the family moved in. According to legal documents, Delaney pressed Sabrina over several visits to let her into the flat to see where Tiffany and the baby were sleeping. Alarmed by the filthy conditions, she registered her concerns with health visitors at the local medical center. It's clear this family needed help. By October 2006, having heard nothing, Delaney returned unannounced to find Rob alone at the bar. He said Sabrina and the children were out, and the door to the flat was locked. Delaney stayed put, however, surprising Sabrina when she returned alone and forcing her to take her upstairs. She found the baby cold, naked, hysterical, and strapped into a chair. He had clearly been left for some time. There was no sign of Tiffany, who Sabrina claimed was asleep in bed. The midwife demanded that Sabrina dress and clean the boy. She was never to leave them locked up again. The family was supposed to receive regular health visitor checkups, but it would be 2 more weeks before one popped into the pub across the road. When she did, Sabrina refused to let her upstairs. Friends and family were growing concerned. Sabrina was increasingly moody and frequently tearful, and Rob was never around. Their debts were spiraling. The business was demanding. The children had needs. Sabrina had no idea how to meet them, but there was no time for playing, going to the park, giving love and attention. In fact, to cut down on laundry, she left them undressed. I've actually never heard anyone do that before. What the fuck? One of Sabrina's relatives, who worked at the bar, heard tapping coming from above the pool table, where Tiffany's bedroom was. Eventually, Sabrina's aunt, Sharon Sutherland, intervened. Left in charge of the pub one weekend, she and her partner decided to redecorate because they didn't want to see them living in a mess. They painted the kitchen stairs and landing, tidied Tiffany's bedroom and painted it lilac. They rearranged the bed with teddy bears and soft toys they found stuffed in a bin bag. In November 2006, Sabrina enrolled Tiffany at Breeden House, a private nursery. But Sabrina's fears and depression deepened. She confided in friends that Rob was again going missing for days at a time, and that their wedding in December 2006 was a desperate attempt to sort her life out. And she was pregnant again. She had an infant, a toddler, a baby on the way, and a business with a man she feared was engaged in some secret enterprise. Sabrina spent the Christmas working around the clock, while Tiffany and her brother were locked upstairs. Everyone sent presents for the children, including a toy station and a miniature kitchen set. But the family did not find out until after Tiffany had died that most of these presents were left unopened. After Christmas 2006, Tiffany did not return to the nursery, and the bill for the previous 6 weeks went unpaid. People started to notice a sticky black line around Tiffany's neck, as if she wasn't being washed, and an awful smell. But one question remained. Where was Rob this whole time? Have you figured it out yet? Well, one time, She was glancing at her husband's mobile phone, and her worst fears were confirmed. He had never given up his first wife and children. All that time that he had told her he was gone, working, Rob had been with his other family, enjoying a parallel life, stringing Sabrina along. How messed up is that? Now, the last time anyone from the Sheffield Care Agencies saw either of the children was the 25th of July 2007, when a health visitor called only to again be refused access upstairs. She examined Tiffany's brother in the bar and left, having not seen Tiffany at all. By this time, the child was a bag of bones. Nobody saw Tiffany on her third birthday 2 weeks later. And on the 26th of September 2007, when another health visitor called the pub, she was told that Sabrina and the children were not home. Accepting the excuse, the health visitor left. Upstairs, Tiffany was locked in her bedroom. The next few days were a blank until police recovered CCTV footage from the pub. They found a microphone had picked up Sabrina and Rob's most private conversations. On the 27th of September, the day Sabrina had told police the last time she fed her daughter, the CCTV recorded her cleaning the bar while saying to no one in particular, "I have to get my daughter up. I've not seen her for a week." Only on the final segment of the CCTV tape did Sabrina remember to look in on her sick daughter. Shortly after 9 p.m. on the Saturday, with the pub's night session in full swing, she went upstairs. She returned 10 minutes later, clearly in distress. She took Rob upstairs, where he stayed till 10:30 p.m., a time during which detectives believe Tiffany's bedroom was tidied and her naked corpse dressed in a clean nightie. When the last customer left just after midnight, Rob and Sabrina faced each other. "Obviously, she's been dead for 2 days," he said. "We could get fucking banged up for this. Everything taken away from us." Sorry, that was my London accent, I don't know. She looked at him with horror. 10 minutes later, she called 999. The community of Upper Thorpe had stuck its head in the sand. Sabrina's stepfather, Paul Bennett, had a chance to intervene. He had spent a night on the sofa in August 2007, but later told police he had not noticed anything untoward in a place police found smeared in dog excrement, where a child was coughing and sobbing through the night. Bridget, Sabrina's mother, who had also gone inside the flat, told police while it was a mess, her daughter had always been an untidy girl. Ew. Even when Tiffany began vomiting repeatedly while staying with Bridget a few days before she died, she did not call a doctor, saying this was a decision for the child's mother alone. For police, the symbol of how badly Tiffany was failed were the lilac flakes found in her bedroom. Evidence finally came to understand. You see, without toys or food, Tiffany had resorted to licking or eating the paper from her wall, spending hours diligently picking it off in pieces, an entire arc cleared by her bedhead as she foraged. Tiny scraps had been found stuck to her locked fists, and all the while she would have heard the drinkers down below stamping and singing. People who now quietly admitted to each other as they shuffled past the boarded up pub that they had long suspected things were horribly wrong, recalling Sabrina's failings and Rob's absences. The couple's incendiary arguments, their dirty, emaciated children, and how all of them had continued to drink the beer and not said a word. When Tiffany Wright's body was finally released for funeral in March 2008, it was brought to Sheffield's Grenoside Crematorium in a white coffin surrounded by floral tributes, including one spelling out Rob's nickname for the girl he never really loved. The name he had for her was Nutmeg. Sabrina was waiting, handcuffed, in the funeral parlor when the others mourners filled in. Afterwards, from her prison cell, she wrote, "When they carried Tiffany in, I wanted to take her away, to hold her and to never let go." And during the time when she was in prison, instead of allowing Tiffany's ashes to be buried, she insisted they be kept at the funeral parlor a few streets from from when she grew up. There they will remain until Sabrina is freed. And guess what? In 2014, Sabrina was freed. Can you bloody Adam and Eve it? You see, she was initially jailed for 12 years in 2008, but she served 6 and was free. This is one of the worst punishments you can ever get, as in the way Tiffany died, because it was a slow death. She was alone, she must have been crying. I have a 3-year-old son myself, so I know how 3-year-old children are like. Just lazy bastards. That's all it was. I mean, Rob himself, right? Him lying, cheating, being with one family, not being with the other. Okay, that's between him and Sabrina. But it was a massive, massive factor in the death of Tiffany. As far as I'm concerned, he's not an accessory, so to speak. He's flat out a murderer. They both should be sent to prison for life and never released. I'm so disgusted. Famine? Famine? I'm from Sheffield. I was born in Sheffield. Bruv, the food there is great. Just fucking imbeciles.